Ever chased a promotion that's always one more quarter away? Or spent hours clearing out an overflowing email inbox only to watch 50 new messages pour in the moment you hit zero? We have two precise words in English to describe these exact flavors of misery. A reward dangled right in front of you, forever out of reach, is tantalizing. A task that demands endless labor for absolutely zero progress is Sisyphean. We toss these terms around casually at the office or in traffic, yet long before they described the modern daily grind, they mapped out the geography of an ancient psychological abyss. In Greek mythology, the gods rarely settled for simple executions. When two mortal kings grew arrogant enough to test the divine order, the gods engineered highly personalized psychological prisons for them in the underworld. By tracing the architecture of these two ancient myths, we can find the exact origins of our deepest everyday frustrations. We start with Tantalus. He was a wealthy mortal king who possessed a rare, dangerous privilege. The gods trusted him enough to invite him to dine with them on Mount Olympus. He abused that trust entirely. Tantalus listened to their divine secrets and whispered them to mortals. Worse, he stole their sacred food, ambrosia and nectar, and smuggled it down to earth to share with his friends. For this breach, he was cast into Tartarus. As the poet Homer described it, the gods planted Tantalus in a pool of water that reached right up to his chin. Above his head, branches hung low, heavy with ripe pears, sweet figs, and juicy apples. Parched with thirst, Tantalus would stoop to take a drink. The instant he bowed his head, the water would vanish, swallowed by dry, cracked earth. When he reached up to grab fruit to quiet his starving stomach, a sudden wind would whip the branches high into the clouds. The trap functions through proximity. By keeping the relief exactly 3 inches from his lips, the gods ensured Tantalus remained in a state of high alert desire. Unlike a total deprivation that might lead to dull apathy, this design uses the constant promise of a single drop to keep the frustration fresh and the agony acute. This specific mechanism of torture was so vivid that in the 1590s, the English language co-opted it. We took the Greek name Tantalos, added the suffix ize, and created Tantalize, a verb meaning to torment someone by presenting something desirable but keeping it forever out of reach. Through his eternal starvation, Tantalus lost his identity as a king and became permanently linked to the concept of the ultimate tease. Then there is Sisyphus. The founder of the city of Corinth, he was a mortal defined entirely by his staggering arrogance and his belief that he was cleverer than the universe itself. When his time came to die, Sisyphus cheated. Through a series of elaborate tricks, he managed to evade death itself, twice. He lived years beyond his allotted time, throwing a massive wrench into the natural order. The gods do not tolerate mortals who disrupt their schedules. For his punishment, they handed Sisyphus a massive, heavy boulder and pointed to a steep, towering hill in the underworld. His job was to push it to the summit. But the rock was rigged. He would brace himself, pushing with everything he had, sweat pouring from his limbs. Just as he was about to heave it over the crest, its weight would suddenly overcome him. The boulder would slip from his grip, bounding back down to the dusty plain below. The true horror of this punishment lies in the mathematics of the outcome. Every drop of sweat, every torn muscle, every ounce of extreme physical exertion is instantly erased. The equation always equals 0. When you map that exact equation onto our lives today, onto endless paperwork, resetting goals, or chores that undo themselves, you get the precise definition of a Sisyphean task. Sisyphus represents the ultimate void. He is the embodiment of human labor completely stripped of meaning, purpose, and completion. The sheer endurance of these stories reflects a civilization with an intricate grasp of human suffering. Long before modern clinical observation, the Greeks had already isolated the specific pressure points where a mind begins to break, the corruption of hope and the total erasure of progress. Out of the thousands of monsters and tragedies in their stories, the torments of Tantalus and Sisyphus survived millennia to become everyday modern vocabulary. They survived because they perfectly map our internal anxieties. These myths target 2 universal existential fears: We are terrified of a life where our deepest desires are never fulfilled, and we are horrified by the prospect of doing exhausting work that leaves no mark on the world. Thankfully, our modern versions of these torments are temporary. An overflowing inbox eventually gets cleared, a delayed promotion finally arrives, or we find a new job. For the mortal kings, the loop never closes, but the vocabulary remains. Every time we complain about a Sisyphean task or stare at a tantalizing reward, we are unknowingly invoking a 2,700-year-old warning about the fragile architecture of human sanity.